ready for a motion to adopt the agenda. There's motion and second. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All right, we have a special senior tonight.
I believe this evening, I think our senior of the month is still en route, so we're going to switch this around a little bit. This is our one of our most favorite times of the board meeting because we get a chance to highlight and celebrate young people. So with that highlighting and celebrating, we'll add the senior on the back end, and we'll go ahead and start with other celebrations. So this evening, and proclamations are two of the things that we're going to be celebrating this evening. Ms. Kruger is going to join us for the proclamation. So as she comes up to prepare for the upcoming proclamation. See, when I couldn't find it, I just said Ms. Kruger, and I figured she will say, here it is. It's hiding under here, under our senior of the month. And so she'll share a little bit about the proclamations, but we're going to bring some special guests up this evening, and perhaps they'll help with reading it, but I'll turn it over first to Ms. Kruger, and then we'll bring up our students and go from there.
All right, we're going to start with Black History Month. So February is Black History Month, and a lot to be proud of with that. And we recently had some students who performed for us at our back to school convocation, and so we wanted to bring them forward for a couple of reasons tonight. One, to again thank them for doing that and their wonderful performance at Topeka High School in January, but with Black History Month wanted to tie that into that and their wonderful dance that they did for us at the event, and be able to just recognize them one more time for all of their hard work that they put in. So if you guys would like to come forward.
Before you, so there are going to be two things. One, they'll share a little bit of what they did if you haven't had a chance to meet these lovely sisters. And then they'll read the proclamation, and we have an extra proclamation for you so that you will all be able to take a proclamation home with you this evening as well. So you can share your name, a little bit about what you did in the upcoming convocation, and if you'd like to share your college plans from elementary on up, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruby Jones. I'm a freshman at Topeka High, and our piece was us showing that you teachers do a lot for us students. We are able to grow through you and through our parents. Our presentation we did was shown as children usually at home. Some of them don't even have parents who they can look up to, but they can look up to the teachers. They're always ready to go to school because it's when they can get away from all the troubles at home. My college plans is for me to actually become a teacher, mainly through elementary or middle school.
My name is Angela Jones, and I would just like to say thank you to all of you teachers. And I think our piece is about the importance of school and how we go to school and we learn things, and sometimes school is a safe place for some kids because some kids might not be treated very well like they should be treated. And so when they go to school, they're looking for someone who can be able to watch over them and protect them. And my college plans, it is to grow up and to become a fashion designer and maybe model my designs.
My name is Kat.
Kathleen Jones. I'm a 7th grader at Jardine Middle School, and I believe that our piece was a new way for teachers and other students to look at the way that people are acting when they come to school, and for teachers to realize that sometimes how they act is exactly how they act at home because parents either aren't there or they're acting like their parents that physically harm them, mentally harm them, all those types of things. So when they come to school, teachers that realize that students have problems at home are more likely to be able to help students deal with that. For my college career, I am looking to a degree in the arts or becoming a preschool teacher.
My name is Tiara Jones. I'm a junior at Topeka High School. Our piece, it was a dance piece, and it gave the picture of an abusive father sending his children to school and the teachers coming forward to help them. And if you didn't see the piece, I would just like to, since we can't do it for you now, I would like to give you words of encouragement here to say that what you do does help us, even if you don't see it right there. Even years ahead, years past, what you can see, it does affect us, and even in the moment, sometimes you can see it. My college plans are to hopefully go to Manhattan Christian College or Kansas State University and get a degree in social work, and then move forward to medical school to become a psychiatrist.
Hold this back to the microphone for the resolution, and can you also acknowledge your family members that are in the audience?
Today, my mother, Miss Dora Jones, is here. She's a para at Ryan. You've been Quincy and Jardine. Yeah, that's two. My father is here. He's a para at Robinson Middle School. My great-grandmother, Mrs. Willa Hayes, is here. And my grandmother, all the way in the back, Ms. Valdana, is here as well. And not a blood family member, but a family member in Christ, Sister Terry is here also.
We are blood family.
And okay, one more. My youth pastor, Pastor Williams, we call him Uncle Williams. And the proclamation of Topeka Unified School District number 501, Black History Month, February 2018. Whereas February 2018 marks the anniversary of Black History Month, an observance to be celebrated throughout the nation, Topeka Public Schools USD 501 joins its fellow citizens throughout the nation to uphold appropriate observances. And whereas Black History Month encompasses many days commemorating milestones of freedom in our nation's history, and whereas Black History Month is of a special significance in fostering a spirit of cooperation between all segments of our American multi-ethnic society, and in paying tribute to the vital role, past, present, and future of our African American community in the fields of business and commerce, government, science, education, religion, and culture. And whereas it is benefiting that the board, staff, and students of the Topeka Public Schools USD 501 join in observance that dramatizes the nation's quest to fulfill the purpose and full equality for all its citizens. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that February 2018 is Black History Month in Topeka Public Schools, and all of our citizens are encouraged to join in that observance, which confers special meaning on the goal of brotherhood, sisterhood in American life. Be it further resolved that a copy of this proclamation be provided and shared at and included in the minutes of the board meeting February 1st, 2018. In witness whereof, we, the Board of Education of Topeka Unified School District number 501, do hereby affix the signature of our president and the official seal of the Board of Education this first day of February in 2018. Topeka Public Schools.
questions? Dr. Mickelson?
So you all did a wonderful job at Topeka High several weeks ago, but you cast your father as the villain in this, and I was just wondering if he caught any grief from his colleagues at Robinson, or did you get, no?
The reason that he could play that role for us is because we are fortunate enough to have a safe home in a place where we know he wouldn't do something like that to us. That's why we are comfortable being able to do something of that magnitude.
That's a wonderful answer and response. You all did a great job. Thank you for doing that.
Ms. Johnson?
And I know that to be true of your father, and I know your grandmother and your mom. And definitely, every time I see you all, you are impeccable. Everything you do with excellence. And so I just wanted to give you a kudos and just say, look, you're just going to keep watching you, because we know every time we see you, you'll give something that uplifts, that encourages and inspires. And thank you all for the commitment.
I just want to say thank you very much too, and you are very impressive women, young women. This is exactly what we need to publicize in Topeka Public Schools, not the bad things, but how wonderful you guys are and how you present yourselves and how articulate you are. So thank you very much. Mr. Woods wants to add a little.
I just wanted to toss out there for the Miss Jones who wanted to be a teacher. Two of the Miss Joneses who want to be teachers. Please remember to keep us in mind, and we have actually done this with some folks who were in high school who planned on being teachers. We made sure we got them some opportunities to actually spend time around parts of the profession that you don't see. Just so you can understand a little bit better, and then hopefully you'll remember us when you get that teaching license and you're ready to do this. So, congratulations.
And for those future teachers, we do early interviews. Most people know this. So if you're a senior or junior, if you're in high school, then you actually could be interviewed by Dr. New. Is she in here now? Well, you can be interviewed next week by Dr. New. I'm really serious. And then we give a intent to hire contract, 4 years or 6 if you're a junior early. So then you already know where you'll come back and teach at. So we're proud of you all. If you hang around for a few minutes, we're going to end up taking a photo with the board. So if you have a seat, and we'll call you back up in a few minutes. You guys did an awesome job. Excellent.
We actually have one more proclamation tonight. It happens that this week is National School Counseling Week, and so we do have a couple of our district counselors here in the audience that we'll recognize in just a second. I'm just going to read the first couple sentences of this proclamation for you. But whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the education, personal, and social growth of their children. And it goes on with that, but we all know the important roles that our counselors play every single day for our students and helping them in a variety of ways that I think for most of us we probably never imagined that they are involved in those pieces for our students. And so we just want to take this opportunity to recognize them for everything that they do for our students and our staff here in Topeka Public Schools. So would you ladies please stand and be recognized? So we'll share this proclamation with you and you can take it back to your teams, but we'll also have you come up for a picture with the board here in just a minute as well.
And they didn't want to come up front. That's the only reason she didn't call them up. They said, please don't call us up. And so with that, we will want them in the photo. We're going to go ahead and still recognize our Senior of the Month. Our Senior of the Month isn't here right now, but we're going to go play the video and then have our wonderful Cap City team be acknowledged, and Miss Lee to come on up and say a few words. So we'll start with the video and then go from there.
Cap City has in the past had a reputation of having bad kids, and as we look at Ahmad and his successes, is they can do it, and we don't have bad kids. We have great potential in all of these kids. He was a student that wasn't sure he would graduate. He, at one point, just kind of decided that this is what I want for my life, this is who I am, and I'm gonna graduate.
Capital City, I like all of my teachers, the students. Nobody gives up on me. Nobody gives up on anybody here. It was a great experience to be here.
He is very determined and dedicated, and he was gonna do it no matter what. He was gonna get that diploma.
You know, when I graduated, seeing everybody smile at me, you know, clapping, it just made me, you know, I got emotional. You know, I did it, and I got so excited, I didn't know what to do.
He does have that idea and plan, and his future is underway.
Started Washburn Tech. I'm doing automotive. After that, diesel and welding. I'm planning on owning my own shop in the next like 10, 15, 20 years or so.
He has what he needs to be successful. He just needs to keep that confidence up and make sure that he keeps in mind that he is worth it and his life is worth living.
Let's give a clap for a round of applause. And Ms. Tracy Lee, if you want to. He started Senior of the Month last year when I first started, and it is one of the most amazing things because it gives you insight into the lives of our young people and the educators that surround them. Ms. Lee, you want to share a little bit about Ahmad that you'd like to share?
Well, Ahmad came to us and he had a lot of challenges, as all of our kids do. He came and he's one of those kids that says, well, I'm not going to graduate. There's nothing you can do to help me. I'm just here because I got to be. My parents say I've got to be here. Through our program, our dedicated staff that you mentioned, we work with the kids. We used our trauma-informed care. We talk to them. We meet with our students in many different ways. Ahmad continued to come see us. He's continued to seek out counsel with us. And there was a day, we could almost see the day when he said, I'm going to do it, Ms. Lee. I'm going to graduate. And I said, yes, you are. And I said, I have no doubt that you're going to graduate. And he said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do after. I said, well, let's do one step at a time. And so we didn't even know this until after he had met graduation requirements. He came back to visit us, and you can almost see him crying. He did cry. We had a big celebration, but he said, I've enrolled in Washburn Tech. And we said, that is awesome. We had tried to talk him into it as a junior. He wouldn't go for it. He just said he couldn't do it. That wasn't, but he has now taken the steps. He is getting it, and he is doing well. So I am very, very proud of Ahmad. He is what we're all about at Cap City.
And in just a minute, we'll be having the Cap City folks come on up and take a photo. We're going to take maybe a 3-minute break to take a few photos.
We are now ready to go to business by consent.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign project purchasing contracts for.
Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, we are now ready for superintendent updates.
At this time, we'll be asking Dr. Grimes to come to the microphone. We have a few parts to this, if you remember. We actually did the truancy report at the last board meeting, and what we shared was as there are questions about truancy or attendance or any other items, to share those, and that Dr. Grimes will come back the second time to speak to that. From that last meeting, one of the questions that came was regarding students and what are some common reasons that students are sharing are reasons as to why they either can't get to school on time or don't come to school at all. And so just qualitatively, we've looked into that information. So Dr. Grimes will be speaking about that. And then from that, we've kind of broadened that piece to look at out of those reasons, what are we doing academically and social-emotionally to support young people? So moving from there, if you can go to the next slide, Mr. Hanson. So her focus today, as he goes to the next slide, really will be on that issue, as well as restating the definition of attendance. So Dr. Grimes, as we go to the next slide, can you start off with the definition and then go to the next areas, and we'll turn it over to a couple of other administrators.
So one of the questions the last time we presented was that chronic absenteeism and what that means and what does that entail. So that chronic absenteeism is absent from school 10% or more of the school days. And that includes any absence. So that can be they just did call in, they didn't show up, they weren't at school, to they're hospitalized. They've got the flu, the parent calls in, they're on a vacation, a family vacation, so any absence goes into that chronic absenteeism that we're talking about. That includes all, if you are not in a seat at school, then that's the absentee numbers that we were looking at for chronic absenteeism. So reasons for those, again, I mentioned the hospitalization. We have students who have to stay home in the mornings until their parent gets off work before they can leave because they have younger siblings. We have students who have to work to help support families. We have academic issues, and so sometimes they don't want to come to school, had some negative impact, and so that's a barrier for them. Health is a big barrier for a lot of our students. Just socioeconomic reasons, they're not getting the fresh fruit, they're not getting the food that they need, and we're looking at that in our health committee as well. So some support services, we're continuing to look at the demographic data, the trends, the patterns. Is there anything that we can implement to help identify some of the barriers? The counseling forms that we use, we counsel every student who is in getting ready to drop out. Why are you not coming to school? Why is that a better solution for you, is to drop out of school? And they fill out a form for us. Their parents fill out that form. So we can kind of get some information on, are we not doing something to help you, to keep you in school? And then Healthify is on there, which is we're looking at has a great search feature that will really identify finding a right resource that's been vetted to help socioeconomic barriers, childcare, housing, food. It's a very community-centered approach to that. So I'm kind of excited to dive more into that.
And I believe we have a sample of Healthify. Is it already loaded, Dr. Mack, so we don't have to wait any lag time? As Dr. McDonald plugs up the computer, one of the pieces that you approved was the Healthify program, which thanks to Dr. McCarthy, Dr. Garcia, Blue Cross Blue Shield, who purchased it on our behalf with licensed users. Healthify is a program that hospitals often use, the Department of Housing uses, so that when you're trying to get resources. So one of the qualitative pieces that we're hearing from families when we went out asking more of those questions from the last meeting, everything from kids being on homebound due to or mental illness or hospitalized, all of that actually goes into chronic absenteeism and truancy. So those things are added in as well. So just because you see chronic absenteeism or truancy doesn't necessarily mean kids are skipping school. So we want you to know that. So we looked at what are we doing on the academic end, what are we doing on the social emotional end. Our district will be the first in Kansas using Healthify, using the Healthify system, and we will be able to have counselors, nurses. Dr. Grimes is familiar with it through seeing it through the homeless task force to be able to use the search engine and get families resources immediately, actually, and match them up with resources. So I'll turn it over to Dr. McDonald to share how this works.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So the program is helps identify community services that are available to our constituents The way that the system works is it's a very simple search engine, but one of the components is you do have the ability to favorite certain sites. So if there's a particular agency that you're going to go to regularly, you can go ahead and save it as a favorite and go right to that particular site at any point in time. Putting in just a topic of mental health in Topeka, Kansas, I can see that right now there are 234 agencies or services available to our constituents. This is showing, for the ones that are listed on this page, the first 10, where are they located using Google mapping system. And then as I scroll through, I can then look at the agencies. I can read a description about it, what programs do they offer, what eligibilities are there, and then even languages that are spoken. When I click on a particular group, I can actually start to drill down into it now. So now this is giving me even more information. I have an address, complete with directions if I wanted that included. I have phone number, contact information, hours, where are they located using a mapping system. Here's a description of the services that are available, and again, the resource programs, eligibility, and next steps that are needed if needed. From here, this starts to really allow us to go further. I can edit this information, so if I see I want to add some additional information or update some statistics piece, I can submit it for consideration. I can share this with a colleague, so if I'm a counselor in one building, I can share this with a counselor in another building, or I can even download this as a PDF, print it out, and give it to families that are searching for this particular service. Another great piece of this is I have the ability to select a language, so I can actually go in and change the language of this page so that if a family in need is speaks a language other than English, I can still continue to give them the information they need in order to receive the services.
With that, and I'll turn it back over to both Dr. McDonald and Dr. Grimes, the other services, so our first training will be really on the search pieces just alone. Beyond that, there are other aspects of Healthify, which include surveys, assessments, screening tools for young people or families, referrals if you wanted to refer someone directly to another agency and email them. There are other agencies like the Housing Authority, who is also an active user, so then they would be able to get a referral immediately. But right now, our first concentration is going to be the search engine. The schools, there are 100 schools in New York under the 100 Schools Project that actually they have behavior interventionists that are deployed to the 100 schools. They use Healthify for the search engine piece, and they match people up with services. So we are studying other places that are doing great things, and we are thankful for Blue Cross Blue Shield, who is funding this, so it's at no cost to us. So with that, Dr. Grimes, any other item you want to add regarding Healthify that hasn't been mentioned yet? And are there any questions for the board for that portion? Because on the social service end for attendance, that's one piece that we're doing. On the academic end, we do want to highlight a couple of things we're doing there.
Question?
Yes, thank you for the information you shared. I think as I look at this, I started thinking about the services that are already in our schools, some of the agencies that are partnering with us. Have we seen those kind of connections where they can actually get those services within the schools, Topeka Public Schools? Because if not, then the other question would be, if you're segueing them to a third-party vendor, how are we ensuring that they have even the means to handle co-pays and those kind of things?
So in regards to the Healthify site, there is a section called Preferred Providers, and so that is a list of agencies that we can upload ourselves to address what you were just speaking to. So we could actually then take this search engine that we saw, and then using a filter option, we can drill down and look at only the preferred providers, which are the ones that we put in or that we see on the list that we target as a preferred provider.
And to add to that, Ms. Johnson, one of the pieces Healthify asked us for, who are all the agencies that they want to make sure that we have. So we referred them to the community resource booklet that really has all the a lot of the agencies that we use. So they're making sure those are uploaded, and many of those are already providers within the system. It's just a quicker and easier way to identify, and it should list on there, in some cases, insurance or no cost, or you'll see that kind of information as well. Now, this is not in place of our current system of making sure services and agencies are provided. So within Avondale West, Dr. Grimes is partnering with a number of agencies and is on the homeless task force. So that won't stop. It's just adding an easier navigation tool as part of this piece. Dr. Grimes, do you want to add to that?
And I was just going to say that same thing, is that this is just an addition to what we're already doing. And with that filter, sometimes it is so hard to figure out the right resource for this. And you'll talk to one school and they go, oh, this is my contact. You'll talk to another source, oh, I use this group over here and they do X, Y, and Z. But there's so much information and so many resources out there, sometimes it's really hard just to collect all of that. And this is a tool that will help us get that very quickly.
Are there other questions on this portion? Because we have a very small piece as well to address on the, again, how are we helping all kids? Because the other question that you brought up the last time was who are those students and how are we helping all of our students show up and succeed and do well? And we may do a little bit of back and forth here. Dr. Grimes, before you have a seat, they never know what I'm going to ask them, so they're always ready. And we'll just kind of segue into this how we're helping all students succeed. On the academic end, and it was great to hear the original initial comment, because it fits right on into this next piece, about students and intervention and moving students from one level to the next. Academically, how are you helping kids feel successful, and how are you helping all kids, no matter what spectrum they're at? Since we have 3 principals here, we're going to have Dr. Grimes just say a small piece. Since Ms. Lee is here from Cap City, she had planned to speak to that. And we also want to introduce our new principal who's had his first few weeks, Dr. Gray, who also will speak to that. Board members, every month, principals will actually be coming at each board meeting just to share, here's how they're helping all students succeed. And so in terms of our gifted students or students who aren't gifted are at every level, because that's really the focus. And through our accreditation process, really moving all students is the expectation, and that's how we are being held accountable. Moving kids out of level 1 and 2 to 3 to 4, but more importantly, as far as we're concerned, getting kids to college and careers, that's really the hallmark of our strategic plan. So every month, starting now, up until our end of year celebration of learning, we will be having different principals coming just to kind of share what they're doing. With that, Dr. Grimes, do you want to just give a little brief piece of how you're helping all kids?
Well, certainly with the additional Avondale Academy that we started, the virtual school that's there, even the day school is a piece that helps. There's a population that were struggling in school. We found them a place that now only helps those kids, but the ones that are in back in the sending schools. We're seeing some really remarkable gains with our students. And once they get some of that behavior under control, they're able to learn. And in our virtual school, we have several gifted students, also that this is a niche for them. They weren't getting what they needed in the sending school, and now here is a different avenue that they can pursue. And so again, we're no longer holding that ceiling, so we've opened the doors. And if they want to get through a class faster than what their classmates are, they're able to do that. So some of those things that I think we haven't had that offering before, and so we're seeing some good things that way.
Thank you. Moving from that, Mrs. Lee, if you can come on up front. Ms. Lee, you all are doing a variety of things. Can you talk a little bit about how you're helping all kids and also the piece of, moving students or bubble students or any of those, just kind of giving a big picture of just how are you helping all students succeed and want to come to school as we've just finished as we're completing our truancy piece.
It's very interesting with Capital City. As kids come to Capital City, you know they're all students with disabilities. We have to look at them in a social emotional avenue as well as an academic avenue. Most of them are failing almost everything when they get to us. As you know, we have to educate them, and we have to look at what they've gone through first. We are a trauma-informed school. So we have to build trust with our students. And if you look at our data, that most of our kids, when they get to us, their attendance improves. Because we start from day one building trust, building relationships. They will come to my office, the advisor's office. We have a counselor, we have a social worker, we have a psych. We have 2 advisors, as well as my dean of students. What I do, and my dean does all day long, is work with kids. When a kid is in crisis, they know they can come to me. They can come to my dean. In the classrooms, we teach the same thing that every other school teaches. We use the curriculum that every other person uses. They need to be exposed to the curriculum. But they are special needs students, and we have to look at them, and we have to adjust according to their needs, and we do. Right now, we are having special groups with my, her name just went out of my head, Janet Morgenstern. She will go in, and she is pulling students. We have 3 students in a group currently that are above district standards. They haven't met the state standards, but we want them to get there. So we're pulling them out an hour a day, and they're working directly with Ms. Morgenstern. They're working on reading and math. They're getting so excited about the state assessments that they have even asked, can I please take home some homework? Which is like, oh my goodness. Very excited about that. We have talented and gifted students. We tell them that every day. When our students get to us, they are beat up. Their families are beat up. They don't feel like anybody wants them. My biggest struggle with Capital City is getting kids back out. Once they feel success, once they are passing all their classes, when we present it to the parents, they're ready to go. Parents and students will say, I'm not going. We are here, I'm successful, I do not want to go. So we are still working on that avenue to get them back out to their home schools. But Cap City is a place where we have raised expectations. We have shown them that there is a life after high school. We've shown them that we care, and their life is worth it. And as you can know, last year we had 17 students graduate and move on. And that's to show the dedication of my staff with all of these kids. They are achieving, they are growing, and we are getting their standards up to the district level.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And the last person, and if you have questions, feel free to ask at the conclusion. So we have an elementary. Now, next month, it'll just be one principal, whoever's the senior of the month. But our elementary, whoever has a senior of the month or the attendance award. But our elementary principal, Dr. Gray, he's had his first month, and he's returned with a smile. And just his positive reputation in the neighborhood has already preceded him. We wanted to use this time, one, for him to share how the first few weeks have gone, but also this piece of how are we helping all students. As part of this answer to the question from last week, he'll be able to speak to that as well. And Dr. Gray.
Good evening, Dr. Anderson and school board members. My name is Arian Gray, and it's a pleasure to stand before you tonight to just share briefly about some amazing things that are going on at Randolph. Saturday, I'm excited because I'll be celebrating 1 month of being principal at Randolph, and that's very exciting. The first 30 days at Randolph have been, excellent. The teachers came back from break, and when they returned, there was a lot of excitement from staff as well as students. And that excitement has continued it has continued up until today. And so we're very excited about what's going on at Randolph. I briefly want to share some things that are going on that you may not know. As a result of coming into Randolph, we quickly implemented our new walk and talk procedures. As a result of those new procedures, students are entering the classroom more in a calm manner. As a result, we're seeing more time on task with students. Another thing that we've noticed is that we're having more in-depth conversation concerning our data and ways to engage students in the classroom. We are working better as a team to make sure that students are being held accountable for their data, or we're making sure that students are being held accountable for the things that they're doing in terms of their academic and behavioral progress. But I think one of the most important things that have happened at Randolph is the conversation that we've had with staff, with students, with parents and community partners about what they would like to see at Randolph. And I just want to take a brief minute to share with you some of what has been shared with us. Through these discussions, we have found three things. Number one, that all stakeholders want students to be the focus, student first, where decisions are based on what's best for students, which we know that is our district focus. Number two, their desire is to make sure that Randolph is a place where it's a challenging, supportive, and safe learning environment that is based on high expectations, where every student has the opportunity to succeed. And above all, one of the things that we've really noticed about the parents and the community at Randolph is that they want their students, they want their kids to receive the same quality education that they themselves received as a student at Randolph Elementary. With these three things in mind, every day that we walk into Randolph, our focus is on three things: to engage, to prepare, and to inspire students for future success. We're accomplishing this, number one, when we talk about what are we doing to make sure that all students succeed. The first thing that we're doing is creating an environment where all students feel safe and an environment that is orderly. We're creating an environment where expectations are taught, modeled, and practiced. We utilize PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. It's a positive behavior process where we provide positive reinforcement for students who are demonstrating the desired expectation. But most importantly, our focus is on instruction and the needs of all learners. Weekly, we meet with staff and we're talking about grade level, classroom, and individual student data. We're looking at gaps, and we're also discussing ways on how we can provide supports to address those gaps. Whenever we look at tiered instruction, our first tier is tier 1, which is good classroom instruction. According to research, if good classroom instruction is going on, then 80% of our students should be doing well. So one of the things that we have done as a staff is really had a lot of conversation around what good classroom instruction looks like. We've been talking about the effective elements of a lesson, and just making sure that we're in the classroom observing good instruction going on and giving feedback to teachers. So you have tier 1 and then you have tier 2. Tier 2 is more targeted interventions, and as you can see from our plan, it outlines some of the things or many of the things that we're doing in terms of our academics to ensure that students are successful. So basically, tier 1, that happens in all classroom, good classroom instruction. Tier 2, if a student is not progressing well, we're having those conversations as to why that student is not progressing, and that student receives an additional 30 minutes of targeted intervention in math and in reading. And then we move to tier 3. If the student still is not responding, all students receive tier 1, And then Tier 3 students receive both Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. And then also we have the support from SPED as well as our GEI process, which is our general education intervention process. As you can see from the plan there, it really highlights what I just spoke about. At Randolph, one of the things that we have embraced is that every staff member is responsible for all students. And as you can see, we have a lot of people, other than classroom teachers, who are assisting in this process to ensure that all students are being successful. I think the final point that I want to highlight is, yes, we're creating that safe environment and we are addressing the academic piece related to students. But I think another thing that we're doing is we're trying to create an atmosphere of transparency, an atmosphere of accountability. Not only are we holding students accountable, but we're holding ourselves accountable. We're holding each other accountable as staff members. And we are owning our data. And we're challenging each other, and we're looking at gaps, and we're having those difficult conversations about, each student, and we're looking at particular students and, figuring out ways how we can continue to move each student. So again, this is our data, and this is what we're doing in order to make sure that students are successful. Are there questions?
Any questions? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Dr. Gray. I just wanted to hear a little more about the walk and talk.
Oh, yes. Basically, when students arrive on campus, they have two options. They could go to walk and talk, or they can go to breakfast. Traditionally, what has been done when students made it to Randolph, walk and talk was in the courtyard. So students that didn't attend breakfast, they would be, in the courtyard until class, or they will be at breakfast. What we have done this January 3rd, we changed that process with input from both staff and parents. And what it looks like now is when students arrive at Randolph, they immediately go to the gym. That's where walk and talk is held, or they go to breakfast. And when they complete breakfast, they have the opportunity also to go to the gym if class is not begun. And so as a result, we're seeing students arrive in the classroom very calm. And teachers have really loved that process. So, additional questions?
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Woods.
I just want to tell Dr. Gray, welcome to the family.
Thank you.
Good friend of mine. Glad that you're part of that.
So I just want to echo Reverend Williams' sentiments and say welcome. We're glad you're here, and ask you specifically in month one. So this may be one of those questions that you answer, you wax diplomatic, and you decide you want to answer after the meeting for me. Well, so this is an individual with a very varied background and somebody with great experience who has been a principal in other districts and in multiple other schools, and has also worked in state government and seen some things kind of up close. I'm just curious, how we're doing. What do we look like from a fresh set of eyes?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I want you to know that I'm very excited about joining TPS. The resources, the support, I mean, it is just phenomenal.
We're glad you're here.
Yes, but also I don't want to leave without echoing and sharing how great the staff is at Randolph. I mean, we have an amazing staff. I mean, Mrs. Wells Martin's there, excellent. I mean, the support that I get from central office here. I mean, the community itself. I mean, parents have come to us and told us, whatever you need, we'll get it for you. I mean, just this morning we had a parent at Randolph that told us, whatever you need, tell us and we'll make it happen. I mean, the support is just excellent.
Thank you very much, and welcome.
So So at the last meeting, you approved Dr. Gray and Ms. Walsh Martin. Can you stand briefly? She is the assistant principal, so they are the dynamic duo over at Randolph that many are speaking very highly of. Thank you for the answering the question, as well as coming because it's your first board meeting, so that you could also acknowledge the board. To kind of wrap that piece up of what we're doing for all kids, Mrs. Wallace has just an example of what he just talked about. Very briefly, we'll just put that on the screen. So the intervention plan, what we've really shared is that every student, there should be a tiered intervention. Doesn't matter what level you're at, there should be some level of continuing to move to the next ability to succeed at the highest ability that you can, and for all kids to work at the highest possible potential. With that, if we have that sheet, we'll quickly bring it up as we are closing on out. And if we don't have that, then we'll close on out from here. And Mrs. Wallace, she just pulled up 2 or 3 different schools' intervention sheet, if we have it. And Ms. Wallace, as he's pulling that, you want to real briefly kind of share the intervention piece? And
well, all schools have a slightly different intervention schedule. Many, if not most of our schools, have a block of time at each grade level that's devoted to intervention. So much like Dr. Gray shared, from 10:30 to 11, all kids at a particular grade level split out. They change groups, across classrooms, and their intervention is targeted to what their needs are based on their data. Sometimes that is remedial services, significantly below level students. Some students, it's working on grade level standards, and for others, it's an enrichment opportunity. So every grade level has a time in their day that is devoted to intervention.
our partnership with KU as well calls it Walk to Intervention, so you might hear that word as well. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but it's part of our CI3T plan, which is also our trauma-informed behavior piece. And so, did you want to speak to that at all?
So Walk To is that actually the kids get up, they move around, and through the PLC process, teachers are identified and kids are regrouped to meet their needs, and so they may go to another teacher. Sometimes that's a classroom teacher. It could be a math or literacy interventionist, an ELL teacher, a special education teacher. It's kind of all hands on deck during that period so that they can work with smaller groups of students and provide deeper instruction.
And several of our teachers across the district are being trained at University of Kansas by Dr. Kathleen Lane, who's partnering and here on site quite often to ensure that a walk to intervention to ensure the success for all students is in place. So we really believe with truancy and attendance numbers are going up. We believe chronic absenteeism and truancy will continue to go down if we can address the social emotional piece and the academic piece. That kind of wraps up that question. That was a big question the last board meeting, so I'm glad we took it apart in two spaces. We did a data at the last meeting and came back to answer the question at this meeting. So as we close that piece on up, if there aren't any questions on that item, I just do want to go into the next item. Yes?
So just a quick question. We seem to have a unique situation this year with the influenza epidemic. And recent news that in Kansas we are among the worst. I can only imagine how this is affecting our schools. All of us in the helping professions have just seen high number of people ill and often out for a long time. And I'm just kind of wondering how you approach that situation. It couldn't have been more poorly timed. But how do we approach that when we're assessing students to see what standards they're missing out on, and then having to make that plan, and then, gosh, maybe they show up or maybe they don't, maybe they're gone for a week. How's that looking at our district with that situation going on?
I guess I can start off. I don't know if Ms. Wallace wants to add or if our principal wants to address. The beautiful thing about, the beautiful thing and the important thing about tiered intervention is that you may be in one tier this week, maybe based on that standard, and maybe the next week or 2 weeks later, you might be into another tier of, I really am not getting this particular concept. I need, to spend a little bit more intense time with this concept. I think, the one piece of understanding that we're really looking at, how do we master standards? And holding ourselves accountable for that to the extent that we can. And in some cases, kids, especially with this epidemic, if they're out for an extended period of time, we meet kids where they are, and we go to where we can. I had the great pleasure, I see Miss Lee is gone now, of teaching 6th grade last week at Cap City. That was exciting. And it was because of, some people were out because of illness, and so it's impacting students and staff. So we really are doing what we can to just meet people where they are and just let them know that progress and growth is what we're expecting. Answer the question?
I would just say that because the groups are so fluid and flexible, that if a student has missed instruction for a week, that intervention time provides that opportunity for some catch-up, as well as then being able to move on with the rest of the class.
Other question?
All right, that concludes our truancy piece overall. The next item is dual language. Oh, and we do want to mention, I think the slide just went off. As you know, on the social emotional piece, I know there was a final slide. We won't spend much time on that, but our mental health, our suicide prevention and our mental health community fair will be on February 22nd. There was a slide for that, but we won't worry about looking at that slide at this time, but know that the flyer for that will continue to come to you. We do have, since we do have a variety of people who've reached out, the on-site services already as of this week, if we go back to that, includes the Greater Kansas the Greater Kansas Association for Mental Health, the Kansas Suicide Prevention Resource Center, the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability plan to be there, the mental health awareness groups, and a variety of other breakout sessions. Additionally, Dr. Alfred Breland Noble, who helped with the Undercover High piece, will be flying in with a teacher who also has had has been impacted by suicide in her own family with her own child. And that teacher is going to actually come and do a workshop for teachers and for parents. And Dr. Breland Noble plans to be one of the adolescents and child psychologists on staff, and she previously was with Stanford. She's very good. And so we just have a variety of workshops that will be going on. So again, expanding that resource to families and getting that in their hands. So that'll be on the 22nd, which is parent conference, and it's really open for all of Shawnee County, and it'll be free. And we thank you, Dr. McCarthy, for being willing to do a session as well and having a workshop. So as we move from that, we do want to share with you, we're going straight into dual language. Ms. Curry will come up for dual language. We are asking that the board consider and approve Topeka High as our dual language selected site. If you have questions for Ms. Curry, feel free to ask those. The slide that is up for Ms. Curry, the slide that's up for Ms. Curry will be one that just shows you the pieces that we looked at to consider the dual language site. And at this time, I open it up to questions for Ms. Curry that you may have as Mr. Hanson pulls that slide up. And Ms. Curry, you already know why the group picked that. So while he looks for that slide, we'll open it up for questions and then any items that she'd like to add regarding how we settled on Topeka High as the site. She can expound more on that.
Well, we had the focus group meeting on January 3rd. It was really well attended. We had several patrons there. We had administration, faculty, staff. Mr. Woods was there. And we had parent representation from all the dual language, the 3 sites, the Scott, Landon, and Whitson. Dr. Gomez joined us, and he gave a really quick overview of the dual language model that we're utilizing. And then I shared feeder patterns, enrollment, and graduation rate information. We discussed the pros and cons of dual language program at all the sites, and then they just shared any overall concerns they had, questions, and that kind of thing. And what we did was We compiled all that information, and then we sent it to the focus group attendees and to the leadership team. And it was pretty clear that Topeka High was going to be the best location for our dual language program for several reasons. One is just that it's centrally located. It's equitable for no matter where in the city you're coming from. The graduation rate is close to 80%, which everyone felt was really important. If you're going to start a new program in a facility, it needs to be one that has a strong graduation rate already. That was a big factor. The student population is really diverse, and also they have a Spanish heritage course going that we're going to tailor make for our students coming next year. It's going to be a small group next year, between 3 and 5 at the most. It's looking more like it's going to be 2 or 3, but we'll be able to tailor a Spanish heritage course just for them. So that's pretty much the process we went through. I was really pleased with the participation. We had Dr. Gomez and I had a meeting with the whole entire Landon staff the day after the focus group and got their input. People still continue to call, and I was able to compile all that and get to the leadership team so we could make sure that it was really well representative and there weren't any factors that would maybe result in someone being unhappy with the decision. So I feel really, really good about the decision. There you go. And I've already been through all of that, so we're ready for questions and answers.
Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ms. Curry. Everything you just said was true, so you feel very good about the process. I also felt very good about the process.
I do, and the outcome, the decision. I feel good about that
Definitely,
too.
me too. We started, I think probably the important piece, we started with the focus group with parents, and before we really even had there might have been some preconceived notions, but we didn't have one put forward in that meeting. It was open. Let's have the discussion. What would be the best site? What are the pros and cons of each site? We talked about the numbers of students who came from each program, the 350 or somehow that would be coming from Scott. I think it was like close to 40 who'd be coming from Woodson. Looked at Landon and how things were situated. We looked at the attendance areas, home attendance areas for each group of students. And so the majority of the students, and I'll just walk through this because this was a conversation we had with the entire group. None of the students would have had attendance areas in Topeka West. Very close to none. It was close to
Yeah, it was very close to none.
Yeah. So that kind of eliminated. Yeah.
Well,
Eliminated that.
the thing that was really interesting when we started putting all this together, and you look at the feeder patterns, that really there's a strong feeder pattern for Topeka High at whether you're talking about Scott or Whitson. So that really helped us make that decision too, was the way the feeder patterns were already kind of set in place.
More of the students' natural attendance area would have been Highland Park, but as we discussed and looked at all of the schools, and we looked at which ones had programs right now that would have allowed you, without making massive changes, kind of upsetting what's already present in each school. The one that had, as you mentioned, the heritage course, the international studies programs, and all the other things that naturally fit with a language program like this. That was kind of how, in that conversation with the parents, most people naturally landed, I think, on Topeka High. We didn't vote that day or anything, but we did go around and put our little dots.
We just gathered all the information from everyone. We made sure we took minutes and took everything down. We had posters up so that people could see what the information we were writing down and gathering, and then we just compiled all that and sent it to the focus group and invited, if there was anything they felt we left out, we could add that later. So
what I thought was really important, though, is everyone out here, I'm probably taking liberty speaking for everybody else who was there, but everybody, I think, had a good feeling on why, a certain site would be chosen and what was best. And so I wanted to applaud you in the process and doing that well, and actually having Dr. Gomez when we had some questions that came up, well, do we have to have as robust of an AP test? Those questions that came up that he was able to help us kind of answer. I thought thought you guys did an excellent job, and I understand the recommendation. Perfectly great with it if we lived in a different world where things were, unlimited in terms of resources and we could divide folks up. It'd be great to do this at every single school.
Well, down the road, Dr. Gomez made it clear,
Yeah,
at PSJA, he said they started with one, and now
and then
all
they moved to
5 high schools have a strand of the dual language program going through it, so we're kind of, but really, the fact that I'm standing here and we're talking about high school,
Yeah.
either I'm getting old really fast, or I don't know what, back in 2009, this was just a dream.
I know.
And we started with one pre-K class, this is kind of like, I felt like I gave birth and my baby's going to high school. I just really feel so excited to be here, so I can't believe we're talking about it, I'm really excited that we are, just the support has been wonderful.
Well, I was just gonna say, in the future, we very well may end up talking about, expanding, and I look forward to us getting there. The key thing, though, that he kind of brought to head for us was, you wanna do this and do it well and do it right first in your first spot.
Right.
Because this is the kind of program that infuses and ups the rigor through an entire school building.
Exactly.
Even for students who aren't in dual language.
Yes.
For students who are not dual language students, if they're native English speakers, the same AP courses that are offered in Spanish are going to be offered in English, and they can actually get into that, so it actually ups the rigor for you through an entire district, through an entire building, and then eventually throughout an entire district. So I'm perfectly comfortable with your recommendation, and I appreciate the process that you went through to get there.
Dr. McCarthy.
So thank you for the information, all extremely good points. My concern would be around enrollment at Topeka High. And I'm wondering, anybody can answer this question, if Mr. Kipp has done any kind of analysis of what kind of impact this would have on, we already feel like Topeka High is already our highest enrollment building, seems pretty full. We've had declining numbers at Topeka West. Highland Park has been kind of building back up, but if we're looking at the majority of kids in the dual language program coming from the Highland Park attendance area, then I'm assuming we're talking about 200 plus kids who eventually would have been Highland Park High students.
Well, if we look at the feeder patterns, students that come from Scott, over 55% would naturally be going to Topeka High anyway, from Scott.
To Topeka High.
And when you look at Landon,
right,
42% would naturally be going to Topeka High. So it's not, it's 50%.
But that means 50% would also have been going to Highland
Yeah,
Park.
and when we talked to Dr. Gomez, he really strongly advised that we consider figuring out a way to kind of put a cap
Right.
on enrollment, because
Right.
there's just no school that can take the numbers that might be coming through, and we really need to consider that for Landon as well, as our numbers continue to grow. We always experience attrition, which is normal, but we're really seeing, as the program becomes stronger and stronger, as we're implementing the Gomez model, we're seeing less attrition. So we're going to figure out, we're going to have to have another, focused group type gathering involving Dr. Anderson and Ms. Wallace, where we can talk about how do we do this and how do we make it fair and equitable and something that's manageable for the school where these kids are going to be going to.
So yeah, Dr. McCarthy, with that note, and since we know we have 3 to 5 students for this upcoming year, so now it's not until next year when we'll have a few more, enough students that certainly Topeka High would be able to absorb, so that gives you 2 years, which then the conversation with Dr. Gomez, it's ideal that you cap a program so that the program actually is one that people want to get into. It's a competitive program. So that is the plan. The conversation about other high schools, 2 years from now, we'll be at that place of really looking at, what are the other high schools? Because that's ideally what we like to do. Remember last year we sent people to go look at PSJA? And I sent them there because they have the College for All model. And so really that K through 12 College for All, how you up rigor at all places, offer courses at all places. So 2 years from now, we don't anticipate this being a significant issue, not just because of the cap, but because perhaps we would have expanded with where we are 2 years from now. And Mr. Kipp, did you want to add anything on the enrollment piece of being able to, restrict, because currently we have transfers that go to Topeka High and from other schools, but did you want to add anything? And
Yeah, one way to meet or kind of mitigate that is.
did you want to come to the microphone because we're taping and they won't be able to hear you? Thank you.
One way to mitigate or to kind of control for some of that enrollment increases would be to limit the number of transfers. What I would like to do is kind of, now that Topeka High is kind of looking like it might be the dual language high school, is develop a 5-year plan, because I know attrition is a factor, and kind of looking at historically and then plan out the next 5 years to see exactly, even 3 years from now, where the numbers are going to be. Because like Ms. Curry said, some of those feeder patterns are naturally, those kids are going to go there anyway. So I think we need to do more of a quantitative analysis to see at what point do we need to move to another high school for dual language.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the decision to go to either your home high school or a different one is multifactorial for most families based on all kind of the whole program offered at a school. So I think it can be sometimes difficult to anticipate. I know the dual language parents are extremely dedicated, so I would assume that perhaps most of them would choose to go on in the program, but I actually don't know that. I mean, I think that's data that we don't know yet. And I think that since it's something that we can anticipate, we know that there's going to be an effect, that a 5-year plan sounds like a great idea, and one that includes getting input from the other high schools about their concerns and what other changes might be required. We have not done a boundary change for a while. I don't think since my time on the board we've done one for the high school attendance area.
Where we pulled some of the students who came from that little sliver of North Topeka over into the.
Okay, and that would have been in 2000.
It was when Dr. Singer was still here.
8 maybe. Okay.
And that was more to align with districts for.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, that was, I don't want to do that again. Yeah,
nobody does, and we'd
yeah.
rather avoid that, but I think what we need to know is what the full implication is going to be beyond. We know it's a good thing for the dual language program. All of these are, good points that make sense, but that's not the entire.
Right, and just anecdotally, I'm speaking to some elements of attrition from the Scott program over to Landon. I think Scott families, they do like that homeschool feeling sometimes, and they, have family or older siblings at Chase, and so I do see somewhat of a, just anecdotally, kids that want to just remain in that area of town because it's more convenient. So then they have to make that decision, do I withdraw from the dual language program, not go to Landon, or do I continue and at a matter of convenience stay in my area of town? So there's a lot of data on that, and we could certainly project. Of course, boundary changes would be, in my opinion, kind of one of the last resorts. But there's some stuff we can go look at.
You should know Dr. Gomez will be here tomorrow, and so he's already, we partnered with him last year to physically come here multiple times throughout the year to be a real part of the strategic planning process, and for you to meet him and him to connect with you all. So he'll be here tomorrow working with ELO staff and other staff, and so we'll be continuing the conversations about kind of what can this look like. Ideally, we initially thought, okay, well, what if we had 2 schools at the same time? One, we want to do it with one school first. We also put up there the 80% graduation rate, or as close to 80% as possible of a graduation rate, because we feel like if you're far below that on a 4-year graduation rate, you have some things you need to be focusing on, so we want to give that time. But he'll be here tomorrow, and we'll be bringing up this piece as well, and so we'll be coming back to you with a 5-year plan, certainly in the next, for the next year.
Dr. Woods, or Mr. Woods has a question, sorry.
And I had 2 more points. I have a couple points I'd like to Dr. McCarthy on that are kind of important to kind of keep in the back of your mind. And one is we kind of have a 3-year window here because the 7th grade enrollment at Landon of our dual language students is 26, and the 6th grade is 35. So we're gonna be kind of okay for the next few years as we flush all this out. But the other thing to think about too, that I've noticed a lot with my ELL, with my English language learners, is when you send them to a middle school that's not their home school, they really establish friendships and really are very close to the kids in that school. And so it might almost be more traumatic to leave Landon and then go maybe to a high school where they're not going to be around a bunch of their friends that they've established relationships for. Because I know that my ELLs, especially ones that test out and they're now ready, they're not ELLs anymore, and so they don't have the option to go to the high school they thought they were going to go to that had ELL services. That was always a problem because they really were putting pressure on their parents and us to be able to stay with their friends. So that's something else to kind of think in the back of your mind as well. That is also a selling factor of going to Topeka High.
One of the things that, and you can confirm this for me if I'm remembering it incorrectly, that Dr. Gomez mentioned that I thought that helped me kind of deal with the thought about overpopulation or over-enrollment, and thoughts about attrition, and do you really want to have a giant influx if the attrition will be the same? So he mentioned that PSJA, the way they were able, in every place he's worked with, they've been able to kind of take the attrition numbers down, because in high school, you're really asking students to give up some of the electives that they would have. So they have to make a really critical decision in the beginning. I'm going to sign this intent form to stay in dual language, and I'm going to jump in, and I do this knowing that I'm going to give up some of the other electives that I normally have, and you have a much higher, rate of students who actually finish dual language than you would otherwise. So, the thought was, okay, if they're going to get a seal on their transcript, it's going to be competitive and a good academic thing for college, then the number shouldn't be 800 anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Those are all facts.
What is the plan to communicate this decision to affected individuals, parents, students?
I imagine, what we've always done in the past, we've had big decisions like this, is we usually hold a meeting at all the schools. And I'm not sure, it would be whatever Dr. Anderson feels is best, but in the past, we've usually had a meeting at the school, invited the parents, so they have an opportunity to ask any questions they have, and voice any concerns they might have. But at this time, I don't know, it hasn't been anything we've discussed.
Well, in a couple of the areas, that's just our standard mode of communication. We now have the community news, which is a new piece that you haven't had in the past. So the community news goes to all of our parents, and so that'll go out in the community news. It's also will be on our TV station, but the open house is on 2/22 on February 22nd. So during the open house, the information will be shared at that time. And then ongoing throughout there, just so people know here's where that site is. The principal and staff, their principal already knows a lot of these pieces, as did the parents that were on the focus group.
And I found out pretty quickly that we've got a great dual language grapevine. News travels fast with the dual language community. So
I texted one of my friends who is a dual language parent and just said, hey, it looks like it's Topeka High School, and he said, oh, great, I didn't know where it was going to be. Been asking for a while now.
Yeah.
Is that the site, THS? And so I confirmed it to him, so maybe it's spread already. But
I'm sure by the time I get home.
I just, his sentiment is, we just need to make sure we do a good job communicating it.
Yes,
so
I agree.
People are aware.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Curry.
Thank you.
That is an informational item, so that if you're comfortable with us moving forward, we are proceeding with that as our dual language site. Just double check with Ms. Curry to make sure we don't have to take action on that. That's a piece of giving you the strategic plan report, and it sounds like the board is by consensus fine with us moving forward, and we'll start sharing information with families about the strategic plan focus group and what they came out with. Thank you.
Any last minute comments or questions? Any more superintendent report? Okay, we're ready for board member comments. Mr. Williams down here. Dr. Mickelson.
Just express my appreciation for the suicide prevention and awareness event that we're sponsoring, so thank you for all the effort into organizing that and participating. So thank you for all that.
Ms. Johnson?
Accidental to that, I appreciate all of these, seeing the intersectionality, even as we're talking about these issues throughout the school, popularity of student population, and we talk about it at the council, understanding that the whole thing is to put our students first, and provide opportunity for parents to learn along with, and it's been a profound process to me to figure out how we can do this. So I appreciate your leadership in that, and supporting that.
Mr. Woods?
I have the opportunity this weekend to travel as an officer for KSB to the NSBA Advocacy Institute this weekend in DC. So I'll be there with other folks from the KSB Board of Directors. There'll be many other people who attend as well. We'll meet with our legislators, our federal legislators, we'll meet with both senators, and I'll meet with my House member individually. But I have an opportunity to talk to them about some of the things that are important to us. If you have anything that you think I should, express that we haven't mentioned, please make sure and talk to me about that before tomorrow. So, thanks.
So I've been, in the last 2 days, I've been to 2 schools, asked by different teachers to come, and I'll just tell you 2 brief things that were impressive to me. One was at Jardine Elementary. I walked around with a 3rd grade teacher, but when I was in the office, they said that they'd had to send 16 kids home from school because of flu, just during that morning. So it is a real problem. And then number 2, I went to Highland Park Central and met with a math interventionist, and watched her teach a class. And then she took me around, and I met with some teachers. I think they were either 2nd or 3rd. I can't remember the grade, but they were co-teaching. It was a classroom that was conducive to co-teaching, and not only were they co-teaching, they were teaching project-based learning. And I was blown away by what they were teaching those kids. And kids were excited, and so were the teachers. So those are the kind of things that are going on in our public schools that I just happened upon. So I'm very proud that that's going on, and kudos to you in teaching and learning. So that's all I have. Any motion for adjournment? All in favor? Ready to vote? Just raise your hand.